And welcome back, everybody, to the TV show. I'm Jay Black, joined as always by Rhea Hughes and Angelo Cataldi. And guys, guess what? I got to start the show with big news on the Angelo front. Our super fan, Louise Bonacore, I found out through intermediaries that she watched, thanks to Angelo, all of Wentworth since he put out the show, which I believe is 9 seasons, Angelo, or 10 maybe?
8 seasons. 8 magical seasons.
And the word I got was she loved it, and thank you.
Well, she listens more to the people I do a podcast with.
This is true.
It's sensational. Believe it. I'm going to give you another one on this show that's just there with it as great. No one ever knows about it. This is a discovery for me, and you will have it later in this podcast.
I have a good one coming up too, although it's not a discovery. There's 6,000 advertisements for it every second, so it doesn't quite count as a discovery. But we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Let's start with something that came out of last week's episode. Rhea and I mentioned the excellent ESPN.com article by Dan Van Natta that does a deep dive discussing Mark Davis and John Gruden and Roger Goodell. And Angela and I were texting about it after the show. And two things that came up that I wanted to talk about. One, Angelo used to do articles like this. So I wanted to talk to you, Angelo, about how those articles are put together, the amount of time and effort and research to just put it into a coherent story is staggering to me. And secondly, I wanted to talk about, Angelo, you said something in our texts where you said Roger Goodell not happy with ESPN right now. So I want to talk about that afterwards. But first, let's start with this. What goes into an article like this? What'd you think of the article first off, and how did you used to do these?
I had not read it when you referenced it last week on a podcast. It is extraordinary. This Van Natta is one of the best because he is actually tampering with a huge billion-dollar relationship between ESPN and the NFL. What he is doing, I can assure you, is not endorsed or supported in any way by the NFL because they are business partners. ESPN and NFL have a deal for billions of dollars so ESPN can show the NFL. And when Van Natta comes out with this, basically telling you that Roger Goodell was looking the other way the whole time Snyder was doing all this horrific stuff and actually trying to protect the guy, you realize that Goodell is an empty suit. He's never sounded more like an empty suit than he does in this piece. Yeah. And I can tell you because I'll go back to the early days at WIP. This is right around the time when Rhea joined us. And I was on a daily assault of the Eagles. This is at the end of the Rich Kotite era. And when we went and booed Donovan McNabb at the draft in 1999, Jeff Lurie and Joe Banner decided they did not want to hear my voice in the morning on their flagship station in Philadelphia. And they wrote a letter which was shown to me by our president at WIP at the time, Cecil R. Forster Jr., which basically was telling CBS and the NFL that I am a pain in the ass and something should be done about me and my harsh criticism of the organization. To the credit of WIP, they supported me. They supported me the whole way, and I managed to survive. But you can't, it's real simple. If you have a business agreement, Jack, with a team, and now you're reporting on them or commenting on them, you are automatically basically threatening that relationship if you do it in an honest manner. And they did it. ESPN did it, and I applaud them for it. It was brilliant journalism. You almost never see this anymore, but it's a rarity now. You'll see it very, very little as we go forward.
And it happened recently because I know you railed against the NFL while we were still doing the show. Is it Damar Hamlin, the safety for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah.
So all that he suffers the cardiac arrest on the field. And ESPN is getting there, and I believe it was Joe Buck. Isn't he doing it now?
Yes.
Getting their information from the NFL. And when it came out a couple days later, the NFL was like, no, we never said that. And to his credit, I believe it was Joe Buck, said, no. We got our information from the NFL. And you talked about it then, that ESPN was seriously, because that was a very, very sensitive situation. And ESPN stood by their report, which we thought was really impressive at the time.
Absolutely. The bottom line, Jay, this is the important thing about what Rhea still does and what I did for a long time. The minute you cave to a business agreement, the minute you go, I'm not going to rip the Eagles now because we're doing the games on WIP. Cash in your chips. It's over. Because you have one thing in that job, and that's an opinion. And it needs to be an honest opinion based on what you see. And the minute it's tainted by fears of your job because you have a problem with a business entity, you're done. You're finished. To this day, Rhea knows that. Rhea's done it. Many times, Rhea, you've said things that you got the immediate feedback from the
people. Yeah, they would call me about you.
Yeah. And you know what? Let me tell you something. If you're doing your job now, they're calling you about you or about Joe DeCam or somebody at WIP because you got to give your opinion.
Well, you know what I'll tell you, you would miss Ange because he's been a guest of our show. Rob Thompson, although I don't like the way he manages, I killed him for it the other day. You ask him a question, he answers it. Good. It's pretty simple. He's reasonable to deal with. I have to give him props on that.
Right. It brings up an interesting point because of the way these giant media companies have conglomerated together. And, going back, I talked about this in the email. I remember in 2003, Playmakers. Do you remember that show?
Yes,
Did you watch that show?
Angelo loved it.
It was a good show. It was in that first blush of golden age TV stuff where everything was a little dark and edgy. It's right around The Shield's coming out. The Sopranos are in full swing. It's a little bit before Mad Men.
Entourage.
It's like, hey, we're going to show you some stuff that you haven't seen before. So ESPN, which is a division of Disney, comes out with a show called Playmakers, which is about the NFL. It is not the NFL. It is one of those things that they don't use the teams. It's basically, think that like the Rock show that was on HBO for a while. Ballers. It's a little bit like Ballers, but with the 2003 Sheen, and it disappeared after a season. I did some digging. Vulture had an article, the Verge had an article. You can't find this show. It has been erased by it's gone. I'll send you guys the article about this, about how it's gone. It's not it's no streamers, nothing. It's been memory hold. There's one DVD release that came out that has been discontinued. No one knows if you weren't there, you don't know the show. And that is 100% the NFL laying its knee across the neck of ESPN going, if you want to have our product, you can't have shows like this. And I know for a while the rumor was Monday Night Football games sucked because the NFL was mad at ESPN and giving them bad matchups as a retaliation for some of the stuff that they did. I don't know if that's true or not, but the point is there was a show that existed that stopped existing because Paul Tagliabue didn't like it, and ESPN did the math and said, we're moving along. And as these companies go, and I mentioned this in our email as well, it looks like David Zaslav, who, by the way, I saw a rumor. I don't know if this is true. I'm just saying it's a rumor. You know, the executive that said, let's wait till they lose their houses before we negotiate?
No.
I saw a rumor on Twitter, and you know it's true if it's on Twitter, that it was Zaslav who said that. He's looking to shop CNN because he sees it as a detriment to what he's trying to do with WB Discovery. And I think...
Let me cap what this is, Jay. Basically, what we're saying here is what Vianata and there's a couple other authors on that piece. What they did almost never happens. Yeah. And the fact that they did it and got inside information on the inner workings of the NFL, we should all embrace and encourage it because we need it. It keeps these people honest. Do you understand?
100%.
The media needs to keep these corporations honest. And Don Van Natta and those people over at ESPN did it, and I applaud them for it.
Absolutely. Go check out the article. I'll link to it again at the bottom of the podcast.
Great.
All right. So there's a show, we're talking about shows that disappear like Playmakers. Some shows disappear. Some shows do not disappear. And I sent you guys along an article. If you haven't seen, Hulu has just revived Futurama again. And it joins the rarefied air of shows that have been uncanceled twice. It was canceled by Fox.
Wow.
It went to got canceled, did well in reruns, went to Comedy Central, got canceled again. Now it's getting revived at Hulu. I don't know why it keeps coming back, but I sent you a list of a whole bunch of shows that have been uncanceled. There was one show. Oh, here it is. The one that really stuck out at me, The Brady Bunch. I don't know. What was it about the Brady Bunch that they brought it back as many times as they did? It was brought back 4 times, guys. 4.
It was. I will tell you this, Jay. I rewatched it with Clark as an adult, like maybe a summer ago or so, maybe last summer. It's funny as hell. It actually was a good show.
Yes.
For a kid's sitcom show is what I mean.
I guarantee you, any of the manifestations of it after the first are not as funny and not as good. I guarantee it, because it's not possible to redo a show 10 years later and make it better. There's only one exception that anyone ever did, and it was because the final season of Dexter was so hideous that they brought it back to end it right. No one else. The Connors, right? The Connors, formerly Roseanne. This is like their third manifestation of that show. It's not funny. The original Roseanne was a great show.
Very good.
Garbage. Leave It to Beaver. They did 3 Leave It
No.
to Beavers, and only the first one was good. Don't bring them back. All it shows, Jay, is a lack of creativity, that they can't come up with a new idea. They got to try the same thing over and over again. It doesn't work. Stop it. Stop it.
So the second question I had was, I'm guessing your answer is no, Angelo. Do you have a show that you wished would come back for one more season or would get revived and we get another look at it? Rhea, do you have one or no? I'll start
one
with you.
I have one. So my brother and I absolutely love this show, and it was based off of a Swedish show, and it was starring the guy from The Office, Rainn Wilson. It was called Backstrom.
I know
he
Backstrom,
played like this, drunk detective. He had this kind of crazy son who wore makeup, and all kind. He had a crazy ex-wife, but he solved crimes. We looked forward to it every week because it was one of those ones that was on once a week. And they canceled it. I went back and looked at it this morning. The critics' reviews were like in the 30s. Audience review, 82%. The audience, absolutely, we were devastated when they canceled the show because we thought it was brilliant.
Angelo, what about you?
Thinking back, Jay, I mean, I'm watching Felicity now, and it's their college years, and it's good people in it and stuff. No, it'll only ruin your memory of it. Don't bring it back. Leave it alone. Come up with something new. There must be new ideas out there somewhere.
It's like when my wife ran into the hottest soccer player at her high school, and he had put on like 125 pounds.
Oh,
she was like, he was beautiful, and I was like, well, now I look better than him, so you win. I have one that I want to do a remake of, because every time I explain the premise to people, they go, "That's an awesome premise," and then I go, "Yeah, but it kind of sucked in the '80s because Lee Majors was in it," and that is The Fall Guy. You guys remember The Fall Guy?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
It's a stunt man who solves crimes, and he uses his
What could go wrong?
He uses his stuntman abilities, Rhea, to solve the crime. So every week he finds a reason to go on 2 wheels on his car, or to jump through a barn, or to jump out of a plane. I loved it as a kid. And I learned how to play the theme song on the piano, and I'm playing it. And my son goes, "What's that about?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a TV show called The Fall Guy. It's about a stuntman who solves crimes." And he goes, "Wait, that sounds pretty awesome." And I'm like, "It does sound pretty awesome. It's a great pitch. How come they haven't remade it? Guys, get on that. TV, when you start making new TV, I want to see more of the
Yeah.
Fall Guy.
They make it as bring it back and have Lee Majors still do the stunts.
Is he 100?
He's at least 80, right, Rhea?
Right.
He's got to be.
It would be seeing a guy running down the street with a walker. Come on.
It should
It's
be
a comedy.
it should be like, yeah, only stunts 80-year-olds can do, like death-defying things like taking the cap off the toothpaste by himself. Eating Jello without a helmet, you know, it's insane. All right, Rhea, let's get to British TV. What do you got for us this week?
So I have Ridley. It's a show on PBS, which you can get off of Prime. Just debuted in 2022. Season 1 has 4 episodes. 2 episodes deal with a singular crime, and then the last 2 deal with a singular crime. Basically what it is, it's this retired detective, Ridley. He kind of was forced out of police work when his wife and daughter were killed in a house fire. There's some kind of backstory. They're kind of stringing you along. But his protege, which is a woman, Detective Foreman, calls him back in when a local man is found dead. And the connection is Ridley had considered him a person of interest in a child abduction of a 3-year-old 14 years prior. Here's the thing is, it's well acted. It's got some legs. It's been greenlighted for season 2, but I solved part of the murder, part of the mystery about 40 minutes into episode 1. I knew it. As soon as I watched the episode, I went, this is like too easy, but I will say this, it's got promise. The lead actor in it is very good. They have to stop. He ends every episode because he's a jazz singer in his spare time. You know, like a stunt man who solves crime. Get rid of that. But it's got some promise for season 2. They just have to not make it so easy for you to solve the crime.
I gotta say, sorry, Angelo, what were you gonna say?
You're an expert, Rhea. Do you realize almost every week you have a new police show from British TV? Maybe you're just better at it than anyone else would be.
I might be, but I will tell you, like, I just finished Deadlock. I never knew who the killer was.
Right.
Never had any idea. So you have to write it better. I mean, I just went, oh, yeah, I get this. I know who did this.
I wanted to
but it's
say,
got promise. I'm not going to kill it. It's got promise.
I want to say something similar to you, Angela, which is every week Rhea has a different show from England about people getting killed. How much murder is happening in England? Do we need to talk to our brothers to the east and say, hey, what's going on here? All right. So for Teen Corner, do we have special guest Clark to come in for this or no?
Well, I know he's in camp, but he's got it's his review. So Clark went to see Barbie on Friday night with a buddy of his.
Yeah.
Yes. So I pick him up on Saturday morning. We had like about a 35-minute drive from where I pick him up. He spends the entire time telling me everything about Barbie. It's Barbie and Ken. They're in this perfect world. And he goes, the Kens are at the beach. And I go, what do they do at the beach? No, they're just always at the beach.
Just beach.
The Barbies are perfect. Yes, yeah. Beach. Then they wind up in the real world. And the Barbies are in charge. The Barbies have all the power. The women have all the power. Then they wind up in the real world. And they find out that really women don't really have a lot of power in the real world. And he goes on, and he's telling me all about it. But he did say there were a lot of like big laughs in it. Mm-hmm. So at the end of this 35-minute nonstop, I mean, he barely took a breath. I said, so you really liked it? He goes, well, it was fine. And I go, you just spent 35 minutes telling me every part about this movie, which he doesn't normally do. I think because it's a Barbie movie and he's a guy, he didn't want to tell me he liked it. But by telling me about it for 35 minutes, I think he really liked it.
It was fantastic. I brought my whole family to it. We all dressed in pink. We made a day of it. We did Barbenheimer. We were one of those groups. I'll talk about Oppenheimer later on. Barbie was great. Greta Gerwig is a phenomenal talent. She did Little Women. She did Miss America. She did Lady Bird. This is her 4th movie. She just signed to do the Narnia books. She did something that is almost impossible to do in American life, which is she took a huge budget, IP driven bit of content and made it personal. and how I have to imagine, because Margot Robbie produced it. So I have to imagine Margot as the star was the one going in and protecting her vision, because I cannot imagine how this happened, right? It is a personal movie that had $150 million budget, and it's quirky, it's interesting, it's funny. And did I feel attacked when Ken said, "Let me play my guitar at you"? And my wife, who had to listen to me play piano 7,000 times, laughed so hard her head almost exploded. Yes, I felt attacked, but I still urge everyone to go see it.
Are you saying you're recommending this not just for kids or teenagers, for adults, for older people? They will enjoy Barbie.
I'm going to go a step further. You're going to enjoy it more than the kids did, because the point of view and the satire is so sharp. Now, they have the stuff for the kids in there, and kids will like. My 7-year-old loved it, but I think my wife and I enjoyed it more than my kids. And the older you were, the more you enjoyed it. It's an astounding achievement to take something that is IP and make it original and interesting and surprising, because this could have very easily been Transformers and everyone would have forgotten it when they left the theater. Yeah. So go see it.
Clark goes to see all those Marvel kind of movies. He's never spent 35 minutes telling me every part of the movie. So I think it's for maybe older teenagers, probably get it a little bit more.
My son, my 16-year-old loved it. So it was great. All right, Angelo, what do you got this week? What's your find? I can't wait for this.
Now, understand, ladies and gentlemen, it's probably not yet because of the writer's strike, but these are dry times for our streamers.
Yes, they are.
You know the networks aren't going to roll anything out in July or August, but you figure maybe the streamers would. There's nothing going on now. So I went, one of the reasons I want to do this podcast to share with people great shows that no one ever mentions. And I have one now. It is its 10th anniversary of its debut on Sundance TV. No one watches Sundance.
Who has Sundance TV?
But now it is available. You could get it free on AMC Plus, or on Prime. You could pay for it. I went back and paid for the pilot just to make sure I loved it as much as I thought I did. The name of the show is Rectify. It is the story of a guy who serves 19 years on death row for the murder of a kid. And then he gets exonerated by DNA. But it's a small-minded town that doesn't believe he's innocent. And now he's back out in the town. It is played by a guy, I'm going to tell you, this is the same era 10 years ago that we were watching Breaking Bad, and great performances. Aiden Young plays Daniel Holden, the main character, the guy who gets out of jail. His performance for 4 seasons, 30 episodes, is as good as anything Bryan Cranston did, or Bob Odenkirk did, or all of the great acting performances. I don't know how I've never seen Aiden Young in anything.
And I watched the first episode, but I'm going to say it was probably like 2 years. Why didn't I go back for a second? Did something happen in the first episode that would have turned me off? Because I was intrigued by the concept. And I remember I watched the first episode and I went, I don't know if this is for me. So I might have to go back and check it.
It's great. It is. So the thing about it is the people that are evil in it, like his brother-in-law, are so evil you want to punch them. Here's more, Jay. Jerry from Succession, Jay Smith Cameron. She is the mom of the accused killer in it. A little younger, really great. The guy from Wayne Kirby from Mrs. Maisel, who plays Lenny Bruce.
Yeah.
He's in it. It is absolutely phenomenal. You can get on AMC Plus. Rectify. I'm telling you, in this dry period, you will get hooked on that the way Louise did on Wentworth.
That's a hell of a premise too. The premise has got me. I'm in.
Yeah.
All right. Premise. I'm going to end out the show by giving the only recommendation that I have higher than Barbie, which is Oppenheimer. I saw Oppenheimer at the AMC Prime Theater. You have to see it in a theater with a big screen and a giant sound system. Sound more important than screen. So if you know a theater that has good sound, go there, because the sound design, it's already won 35 Oscars. It must have, because it was the best sound design you're going to see. I'm going to say this. I got to go back and see it again to identify it as a piece of art. Because as a thing that exists, it is so improbable that I am staggered by it. It is a 3-hour biopic about a scientist who built a bomb, and it is the most exciting, energetic movie that you have seen. The triumph that Christopher Nolan put together in making this a compelling movie. The best thing I can tell you is this. There was a group of kids, and I say kids, they look like late teens, early 20s, who were there for the Barbenheimer experience. My AMC did 3:30 for Barbie and then 6 o'clock for Oppenheimer. So you could just stay in your seat and do a double feature. It was wonderful. So my son and I are sitting there. They are dressed in suits for Oppenheimer. The girls are in pink short skirts for Barbie. And they are talking loudly during the movie. And 15 minutes in, there is a sex scene with Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy, and they're laughing. And I'm about to go over and say something to them. After that scene, they shut up. Nobody said a word to them. This movie about a scientist in the 40s was so gripping and so moving so quickly and spectacularly. Those idiot kids shut up and watched the movie. I didn't hear a peep from them. Nobody said a word. They just watched the movie. I don't think they were there for the party of Barbenheimer, but they stayed for the story of Oppenheimer. Go see it in a theater. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It will blow you away. It is stunning.
I was not going to see it, and now I will, because of what you just said. That's how strong an endorsement that was. That was great. All right, I'll review. Rhea recommends Kind of Ridley on Amazon Prime. I highly recommend Rectify on AMC Plus and Prime if you want to pay for it. And both Barbie and Oppenheimer are in theaters now, and soon, I am sure, will be streamed. That is what we have today.
Guys, thanks so much. If you like this, please rate and review us on iTunes. Spread the word about us. We ranked in Israel. So if you're a country that starts with I, you love us.
They love us.
India, Ireland, Israel, I don't know what it is, but they really love us. So I appreciate everybody continuing to spread the word and growing the podcast, guys. I appreciate your time. Rhea, Angelo, see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.